Díomh Cordia agus fáilte romh go léir. Hi everyone, you're very welcome to this evening's edition of our CIFF at Home series. CIFF at Home is Solas Nua Capital Irish Film Festival's online streaming series. We present this in partnership with NYU DC Dialogues, and tonight we're delighted to present a screening of Alan Gilsenan's The United Irishmen. Alan, award-winning director, will be with us in conversation to talk about the film and also to introduce us to The Irish Question, his latest film that we are presenting as part of the 19th edition of the Solas Nua Capital Irish Film Festival. The festival kicks off next Thursday, February 27th, and runs through Sunday, March 2nd. And that's being presented in partnership with our friends at the American Film Institute's AFI Silver Theatre and Cultural Centre in Silver Spring. This year's festival is our largest programme to date, and we'll be presenting the latest Irish independent dramatic and documentary features, shorts, art films, and animation releases. We've 13 premieres, 39 films, and 16 features to share with you across the 4 days of the festival. The festival is committed to the representation of women's stories on screen, and so we'll be presenting the work of 17 Irish women directors and 12 Irish women screenwriters. This year, we're delighted to welcome many of the filmmakers to talk about their work here in DC. We have gala events, special screenings, talkbacks, meet and greets. There's a lot to see and a lot to do across the 4 days, and I hope you'll join us at AFI for the festival. We'll be opening the festival next Thursday, February 27th, with a very special gala screening of Aoife Kelleher's Mrs. Robinson. And we're delighted that Mary Robinson will be with us in DC for the screening and for a Q&A afterwards with author Katrina Palmer. Tickets for the opening night are sold out, but we are running a standby list at AFI on the night. On Friday evening, we have a very special Norman Houston Awards presentation presented in partnership with the Northern Ireland Bureau. And on Sunday, we have our closing night film. Eva Berthistle's Kathleen is Here. Writer and director Eva will be known to many of you through the show Bad Sisters, in which she plays the character of Ursula Flynn. The best way to explore the programme is to visit our website, solasnua.org/CIFF. Sadly, all of our festival passes have sold out, but there are individual tickets on sale for all of the screenings apart from opening night. We hope you can join us at AFI next week. And particularly at the Irish Question on Saturday, March 1st. And in the meantime, we hope you enjoy this offering from NYU, DC Dialogues, and Solas Nua. Hi, everybody. You're very welcome to Solas Nua's CIFF at Home screening this evening. We are delighted to have with us Alan Gilsenan, the director, who is going to be talking to us this evening about The United Irishmen, the film we're showing. This is in advance of the Solas Nua Capital Irish Film Festival, which is taking place February 27th until March 2nd at AFI Silver Spring in the Washington, D.C. area. Alan, you're very welcome to joining us here this evening. Thank you so much for being with us.
Lovely to be with you, Maeve. Lovely, as always.
Thank you. So at the festival in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be screening your film, The Irish Question. We'll also have writer John Walsh with us from Ireland, and you both will be in conversation after the screening with Dr. Dara Gannon from Georgetown. We're presenting that screening in partnership with Georgetown Global Irish Studies Programme. And it's a very important film, especially for the moment that we find ourselves in. Can you tell us a little bit about The Irish Question, and then we can connect back to why we're actually showing The United Irishmen this evening as well?
Well, the Irish question is a big question, I think, for anybody who is either living in Ireland or interested in things Irish. And it was a very simple premise that John Walsh, the writer, put to me many years ago over a coffee. And it was in the wake of Brexit, and John was saying that Britain almost fell into Brexit, almost by accident, on a kind of emotional whim, without perhaps thinking about it, and that there was a danger potentially that we in Ireland would do something similar with a border poll and fall into, or at least consider the idea of a united Ireland. And And really, the Irish question is looking at that. It's not a polemic. It's not, we're not arguing for one or the other, but we're exploring the possibilities of what would a united Ireland mean for everybody living on the island. I grew up, my father or my grandfather was a nationalist MP in Westminster. And
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, so I think somewhere in the back here I have his top hat that he used to wear going to Parliament from Clonmel in Ireland. So, I grew up, even though I grew up, I suppose, in the kind of uh, Irish parliamentary party tradition of democratic nationalism, but I always grew up with this kind of romantic notion of a united Ireland. And I think a lot of us have that. It's something that's ingrained in us kind of mythically. And yet, as I teased it out with John, I realized I'd never really thought about, well, what does that mean? And
Mm.
so the film is an exploration of that. We talked to many people in Ireland, North and South, but elsewhere, President Clinton over in Washington with you, and also people like John Major and others in London. And it's really just to explore the idea without having a kind of, as I say, you know, an argument that we're pushing. It's to kind of explore, to open the Irish question. And I suppose the second element, as we started to tease that out, I began to realize that a younger generation, thankfully, the Troubles is a kind of distant memory. So I felt that it was also important to interweave into the film something of the story of the Troubles and
And how
the
we got here, I suppose.
yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. And so I know you've shown the film in, I believe it's in County Down, in a local community there, but the film has not been seen yet in the States. So this is the first screening in North America, and then you're taking it to Chicago to the Irish Film Festival there. Um, would you have any hope for the film in terms of opening up conversations within communities about what potentially lies ahead for people in the north of Ireland and the south?
I think so. I mean, it does seem to have opened a debate. I hope it's broad-minded and open-minded enough. And as I mentioned, we had a lot of contributions from, the likes of Bill Clinton and others in America. And of course, the whole idea of a united Ireland is an even more romantic concept, I think, for Irish Americans. And so really what we'd hope to do both here and that's happened to a degree, but also in the States is open up that conversation, you know.
It's
And I
very
think
grounding as well. It talks about the real practicalities of what these questions are that need to be considered before something like this would happen. And also the fact that you have so many people from across the different communities in Northern Ireland. It's so balanced.
yeah, I hope so. I think as I said earlier, these things are emotional. I think we often vote on emotions, but they're also very practical. They're economic, practical considerations that have to be faced up to, but also that we're living in an era maybe slightly changed by recent events where borders become less important.
Hmm.
David Gavigan, a wonderful man from Belfast who's very involved in the Aaron's project, he makes the point that, Dublin and Belfast will be united by climate change, by the rising waters, so that maybe the old divisions are less important. And of course, there is a new generation, particularly in the north, who don't adhere to one side or the other, orange or green. They're interested in a more pluralist. I think Jan Carson, the writer in the film, expresses that they're interested in a more pluralist island, an island that is part of Europe, that is part of a wider world. So there's lots of considerations to tease out. And certainly one of the joys of making it was there were a lot of things as we talked to various people, there were a lot of things that made me think. I thought I haven't considered that, and I hope the audience will feel the same.
To connect our audience to the film that they're going to see today, these two films, The United Irishman and The Irish Question, are closely linked. Can you tell us a little bit about the making of the United Irishmen? Because this obviously came before you did the Irish question. And the reason why we're showing it to our audience here today is we would love them to get a clearer understanding, I suppose, about the history of republicanism in Ireland. Would you mind just giving us a little intro to what the audience is going to see today and to connect back to the Irish question? It's the homework we're giving our audience ahead of watching the Irish question.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as you say, the films were made independently, but actually, in retrospect, I see they're very much linked. And I mean, the United Irishmen or the famous 1798 rebellion was a pivotal event in Irish history. It wasn't the first event,
Mhm.
but in a way, there are a lot of parallels between what's happening now and what was happening then. The period between 1798 and, perhaps the birth of the peace process in Northern Ireland was one of division. Was one of, as I say, orange against green, Protestant, Catholic, nationalist, unionist, all those hoary and tragic divisions that we all know. Whereas the United Irishmen was a group that was born in Belfast, but spread across the island, that was inspired by what was happening in America, by the American Revolution, but also the French Revolution. This whole notion of equality, the rights of man, as Thomas Paine famously put it. And this was a movement in Ireland, as they famously said, of Catholic, Protestant, and Dissenter, who were looking for the vote, were looking for autonomy for the island of Ireland. Um, and I think it was a very noble movement. We know the big names, Wolfe Tone, Robert Emmet, many others that have been forgotten in the tide of history. But while, Irish nationalism often invokes, the Wolfe Tones, their songs about Emmet, um, their vision, their pluralist vision was very rare, I think, and has kind of been forgotten. And so it seemed like a very good time to try and rediscover the
Mhm.
story of the United Irishmen and the women. Of course, there were
Yeah,
women,
yeah.
because these were also people who were not just thinking about autonomy for Irish people on the island of Ireland. These were people who were also in favor of women's rights, who were anti-slavery, who were very inspired by the anti-slavery movement in the US. And so they seem a very contemporary group in their ideas and imagination. And it was interesting then, after the United Irishmen making the film, The Irish Question, a lot of people, including, say, Leo Varadkar or
Mhm.
former Taoiseach, of course, invoked the spirit of the United Irishmen.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting because I think here on the island we're easing back towards that kind of pluralist vision of an Ireland for everybody in Ireland.
Mhm.
We've seen the
Especially
tra
now.
yeah, we've seen the tragedy and bloodshed that the divisions in the north brought, and certainly we
Mhm.
still have to deal with that trauma. That's a very profound thing. We're not going to move on until we've dealt with that. But in a way, the United Irishmen seem to me, and really I only put this together in retrospect,
Mhm.
the start of the story.
Yeah.
So in a way, it is in a way a prologue to the Irish question. So it's lovely that you're showing this ahead of the screening in Washington.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Alan. We're thrilled not only to show this film today, but also to be screening The Irish Question. It will be the North American premiere, and we hope that you will book tickets and join us at AFI on Saturday, March 1st at 2 o'clock. Alan will be there with the journalist and writer of The Irish Question, John Walsh, who'll be travelling from Ireland. And we are partnering with Georgetown Global Irish Studies to present this screening. And Dr. Dara Gannon from Georgetown, formerly of UCD History Department, will be with us and he'll be moderating a conversation. And we welcome questions afterwards. We've made some time for this Q&A and for audience engagement. And obviously, we'll be going outside afterwards to have conversations about it as well. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Alan.
Real pleasure, Maeve. Looking forward to being with you in at the festival at the beginning of March.
Thank you.